This is a webinar on how to collaborate better with web devs. So this is a topic that comes up a lot when people are generally struggling to get things actioned and implemented. So we've got some guests from our Lumar team to talk you through their experience on the side of things. Bit of housekeeping. So we have a Q&A section at the end of this. So please do type in your questions into the Q&A box. It should be at the bottom of your screen. And we will have a little feedback thing that pops up at the end of this webinar. And it literally takes less than a minute. And it just gives us an idea of, was this helpful? Was the topic interesting to you? To just help us maintain that these are actually useful and we're providing webinars that are giving you tangible insights and not wasting your time. So please do fill that out. And this will be recorded, so we'll be sharing this out in a few days' time. And it will be on our YouTube channel eventually. So closed captions are also available. You can enable those with the icon. Sometimes it doesn't appear there and you have to click the 3 dots and show subtitle. You can also enable live transcripts if you want to. And then when, as I said, this is recorded, when this goes out, it'll be distributed on our YouTube channel and there'll be full subtitles included within that. So I'm joined today by Lucas Carneal and Richard Barrett. So Lucas is our head of delivery and he oversees the delivery of our roadmap of features. He's working every day with the engineering team and can provide an interesting perspective from the dev side of things on how does it actually look on the other side of the fence when they're receiving these things, and how do those processes go and how can we make them go more smoothly. And Rich is our director of professional services. So he leads the team of SEO experts, helping our clients identify important things to work on and improve their websites. And he's also, in a past life, was a developer himself, so has that nice balance of being on both sides of it. And I'm Matt Ford. I'm the head of product here, so I run the initiatives, figure out what we need to build. But the main focus is on these two today. So in terms of what we're going to run through, agendas, introductions we've done, how things should work. Rich is going to start us off with a section on when we talk about the SEO dev processes, how should things ideally work? What are some of the typical workflow challenges? And then what does success look like in an ideal world? And then we'll move into a section with Lucas, the lowdown with Lucas. Blame Rich for that title. And he's essentially just going to give us some perspective from his side of things, gain some insight into what does that look like and how can you translate that into your own processes or workflows. And then we'll have some time for the Q&A at the end. So starting things off with just a poll, and this poll should appear in your screen now. How often are you writing tickets for developers? So in your day-to-day role, is this something that you do every day? Is it once a week, once a month, never? Obviously, if it's every other week, you can decide which one this is closest to and whether once a year counts as never or once a month. Up to you.
I think if you're only writing a ticket once a year, you're probably never writing a ticket, really. Or you're very good at it and you spend a lot of time writing just one ticket, maybe.
You write very big tickets. It'll take a year to get done.
Once a week. Interesting.
Yeah, that's quite often.
Right.
That's quite often.
Yeah. So the majority of people are writing relatively frequent tickets, and some are every day, which can take quite a lot of time to do. So follow-up question to this: when you're writing these tickets, which issue tracking systems do you generally use for them? And now this might be something like Trello or Jira or Monday.com, or a combination of them. Often we see people are using multiple different systems. depending on whether it's a ticket for the devs or it's a ticket for just the SEO team, content team, whatever that might be. So just tick all that apply to you.
Now, I find even when we're not talking about Jira, we call them Jira tickets. So I'm expecting this to be the big one on the.
I would be surprised if it is not.
Yeah. Should we do some gambling? Are we allowed to do that? I don't think we are.
We should have placed the bets before, I think.
Yeah, there we are. 63%.
There you go.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Although
majority.
My contribution of Excel on there is more popular than I thought it was going to be. So there's a lot of people using just spreadsheets to do this, which could be an effective strategy. But yeah, certainly cheap.
Excel
Excel
runs
gets the
the
job
world.
done.
Yeah.
It runs the world. What can we do?
Cool. Thank you for sharing. So moving into our first section then, Rich, tell us about your experiences of the SEO dev processes. How do they generally go?
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers, Matt. So effectively what we've got is, well, effectively what I've got is a wonderful way that everything should fit together and flow through in this perfect ideal system. You identify a website issue, and this it could be an SEO issue. It could also be an accessibility. It could be a site speed. It could be a lot of different things. It could be stuff unrelated to SEO whatsoever. But you've identified that website issue. You then quantify the impact of it. How much of an actual needle move is this going to do, so that you can then prioritize it and produce a full plan of this is how we're going to resolve it. This is what the impact's going to be, and send that on to the dev team with a user story, some acceptance criteria, no gaps in that user story. The dev just goes, oh, this is what I need to do. This is how I'm going to do it. But also give them the freedom to explore. You know, you're not trying to be the dev as the person who's identified this issue. You're trying to leave them the space for them to go away and do the solution as they see best, so that they can have more effective a more effective development cycle on this, because you know there's always new things in dev, new better ways to do stuff. You don't want to be trying to second guess, much as you don't want devs to second guess what SEOs will be doing. It's that sort of smooth process is the idea behind all this. And what you effectively have is, from start to finish, a path of here is the problem, right down to here is the resolution, and this problem will never happen again. Of course, this is very much a complete fantasy, and if your process relies on everything being perfect, it's not going to work. It's going to fall apart. You need to be able to identify and fix when it falls down, which leads me on to sort of the next point of the typical workflow challenges. So where do the actual problems start to emerge? Well, they start to emerge from a lack of understanding of dev workflow. So we're here saying, right, well, we know devs like tickets. Let's write tickets for them. But they need to be of a certain level. They need to contain the information that they need. So a perfect example is if you were to submit a ticket saying, right, okay, key term is not in the H1. We need you to update it so that the key term is now in the H1 on all these pages. You've just left a gap there for the dev to go, well, what is the key term? How do I figure that out? Do I even know what a key term is? Because how familiar with SEO I am. So it's that lack of understanding there and the missing information, which results in delays. And when you don't understand the dev workflow and you try and squeeze your stuff into there, effectively they have to work around you. So you're making obstacles for them to have to work around, which introduces more delays. And that sort of thing is what gets your work pushed out of a sprint, because maybe that delay is a week, maybe that delay is even longer. If it's a big project, it could be a couple of weeks. And then a sprint cycle might be only a week, it might be 2 weeks. And, you know, I'll leave Lucas to give exact dates on that one. But if you push something along those lines, you know, a delay of a week or 2 weeks and it falls out of the sprint cycle, you then have to wait for the next one for it to come in. So you're introducing longer and longer delays to the work that you're trying to get put through. And the same applies when the full scope of the work is unknown. So what do I actually mean by this? I mean, you say, oh, I need this title updating, or I need this image updating. This should all run from a CDN, that sort of thing. But we don't really know how much work is involved in getting that done. The devs are going to have to go away and figure out, if I need to update this title, is it a one and done? Is it just add some stuff into a CMS to resolve that? Maybe that field doesn't exist in the CMS. So what they've actually got to do there is create the field in the CMS, program that to actually work, and then they can actually start to update that sort of stuff. And you can see how quickly it can get complicated because there's areas that we as SEOs don't know. So if we can't fully scope the work when we're sending it to the devs, what we're effectively doing is letting them or making them scope the work, which then means there could be additional delays that we haven't even thought of. But that does lead me on to, what does actual success look like? You know, we've talked about the sort of the problems in that sense, but how do we reach a satisfying conclusion between the two sides here? So success is getting items into the normal dev workflow, like how they work, getting your item put into that list with a clear importance so it can be prioritized against other issues. It's about eliminating unnecessary reasons for delays. There's always going to be a reason to delay something. Well, maybe not always, hopefully not always, but there's going to be delays that you just can't get around, you know, areas which don't make sense. I do apologize for my dog who's decided to contribute here, but if we can eliminate unnecessary reasons for delays and provide clear avenues for devs to reach out when they have questions, we can accelerate this process. We can get it to the point of, here is the issue, let's move it forward. And this is where, when there are problems, this is where we talk. This is where we get things resolved. And you don't have to go and Google and research, etc., how SEO works in order to just for you to do your job. That should lead us to a position of consistency. So you get issues raised in consistent manners. It becomes easier for both sides to complete the actions for the respective roles. You know, SEOs are not trying to do dev work, devs are not trying to do SEO work. We get those two sides sort of separated, but also sharing information where it's needed. That's what success looks like. It's not a perfect system. It's not the perfect system that we outlined before, and I'm sure some tickets would move through in that manner if you can get to that stage. But when you hit the problem, those problems shouldn't be blocks that stop you for months on end. It should be about consistent ways of overcoming these roadblocks and working together rather than effectively working against each other. And that does lead me into my final piece, which is the way that we do things, the Lumar connected workflow. So this is how we envisage how everything works from our side. So we analyze a problem, which is as good a place to start as any. We analyze the problem, we find something. It could be anything. It could be unknown number of 404s have suddenly popped up. Right, this is a problem. Let's prioritize it. So where does that fit into the prioritization? So what is the impact? Where is this impacting? All these little bits of information that we need to provide so that the dev team can say, right, okay, where does this fit versus this button on the site doesn't work? Because that is also something they'll be dealing with. This doesn't work versus your 404s. Which is more important? Well, here's the information that I need to prioritize this. Then we head into the development. They fix it. Hopefully everything's fine and nothing ever goes wrong. But just in case, let's do some testing. So we test it, we deploy it, then we measure and maintain it. And this is based very much on the web dev lifecycle. And this is the way that we sort of overlay onto the web dev lifecycle in order for us to match what they're doing with our workflow. So that leads me into the poll question number 3. What is the top opportunity for improvement for your team or organization? And I'm assuming you've launched this, Matt, sorry, because, there, perfect. I was going to say, I don't know where the button is for this. I know what my team has said on this.
Very
It's
curious.
communication. Yeah. Well, from our side, it's communication. That is my team's big thing for our improvement. So that's something we're working on. Yeah. I don't know if you've also got poll answers here.
Drum roll. Let's see.
Getting things done there. Okay. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It kind of encompasses everything else, to be fair. So, yeah, this one being the most prominent one out of all makes a lot of sense.
It's the output, really, isn't it? It's the outcome of the other things not being good enough. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And in terms of getting things done, this is a great segue into Lucas. Lucas, you are the head of delivery. You're in charge of getting things done. Like the role that you do is literally your sole purpose is to ensure things get done as efficiently, as effectively as possible, right? So, do you want to just start by telling us a bit about your experience? Bear in mind, the people attending this webinar might not necessarily have like either access to a head of delivery or necessarily have a kind of encountered one. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about your experience on your side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as Matt introduced me at the very beginning of this webinar, my main responsibility is to oversee the delivery of an entire roadmap, but it goes far beyond that. It goes into actually also maintaining legacy applications. It goes into ensuring that we're providing the best support and the quickest support to our clients as well. And it all sort of piles up in terms of all of the different requests from different teams and from different and for different purposes. And you gotta understand how to prioritize that accordingly so that you're getting a little bit of all of those things done, but in the right order, right? So that you're getting the most value out in the fastest way possible. So this is in a nutshell what my role does. And in most companies, they will have project managers, delivery managers, or someone that sort of oversees the process. And usually that person is responsible for being sort of a communicator or ensure alignment with everyone else. So I've been with Lumar for 4 years, and throughout this time, we managed to do some quite amazing things as a team. So we doubled overall team's velocity across the board, across all the teams that we work. We also managed to cut operating costs by almost half across the board as well. And this was done by also, as I said before, ensuring that we're prioritizing the right things because it's not only about delivering features that add value, and that will always be a number one priority, but also about how can we be more efficient with less, right? So operating in a lean fashion, this is very true for all of the organizations, especially after the pandemic, that we have to cut costs in order to stay profitable, right? So this is something that we have prioritized in order to make our tech stack way more efficient. And then we also managed to get shipping new features every 2 weeks as well. Before, we didn't have pretty much a defined cadence. It used to be all over the place, and we managed to now get this very frequent cadence of delivering new features, adding new values. So you can rest assured if you open Lumar in 1 week and then wait 2 weeks, you will see something different there. And we are hard at work at delivering that. So it's definitely something that I'm very proud of all of the team's hard work and everything that we're doing. And I say we because this is not just about me. This is about the entire team. So this is definitely something that you should consider, that you don't work as an individual. You are always part of a bigger team. So everyone needs to collaborate. Everyone needs to be part of something bigger and be looking towards achieving the same goals. However, it wasn't smooth sailing from the beginning, right? So I come from an industry. Well, I come from big enterprise and then I worked for consultancy and mostly on the web development side. This is the first time that I'm working with software. So pretty much when I landed, I had imposter syndrome at the beginning. I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't know what the goals and priorities were. And that sort of made me really panic for a little bit because I was thinking about what value could I add for this organization in order to make this all of these teams successful. And one of the things that I noticed, and it's the common denominator across every place that I worked, is people, right? So basically, that's the beauty of working at this day and age, is that we still get to work with people, not machines. And this is what makes us all different, right? So pretty much from starting to take notes at every meeting that I joined, and sort of understanding what their blockers were, what the problems were, what sort of like collaboration issues they were having, what sort of demands they were having for other teams. I started painting this picture that started to help me understand the common pitfalls, or sort of like the main problems that we were facing as a team and as an organization, and also to start devising a plan of action in order to tackle those challenges. So some of the pitfalls that I saw, and this is probably true for a lot of companies out there: lack of objectivity. And you probably noticed that this is a theme throughout this presentation, as Rich was mentioning before. Lack of objectivity pretty much undermines efficiency, right? So pretty much you are taking a long time to define something, and then when people get that sort of half-defined requirement to work on or something like that, they will definitely take longer, or they might prioritize something that is a little bit more defined, right? So objectivity is the name of the game, and it permeates everything that I do. Which is a nice segue into the second bullet point there. When I joined, I noticed there were too many meetings happening. And not only too many meetings, but too many meetings without any set agenda or without any sort of action items taken at the end. So you know that saying that goes, this meeting could have been an email? Yeah, pretty much. So keep that in mind when you're booking something in order to get something out of it. So always try and divide and determine what are the next steps, or what are the key takeaways from this meeting, right? So this was also something that I tried to do with my teams, is reduce the amount of meetings that they are in, and the ones that we kept in, that they have a clear purpose, right? So that we are always getting something out of those. And then third but not least is absent decision makers, or too many of them, which is the other side of the coin as well. So sometimes when you're trying to prioritize things, you might end up in a situation where there's one team asking for one piece of work, and then you have another team asking for a completely different piece of work, and then you have the development team in the middle. How are they supposed to know which one to prioritize first if there isn't one person to be sort of like guiding that priority, right? In our world, in the software world, we call that a product owner, but they might come in all different shapes and sizes and different titles. But really, realistically, you should have one person that is going to make the final decision. And I really want to reinforce the fact that it should be one single person. Also, you probably heard of too many cooks in the kitchen. That happens more often than we think. And then, yeah, this is also something that just pretty much transforms everything into a tug of war, right? And this is what we're trying to avoid. And this is ultimately one of the things that will help you get things done.
It's interesting that you and Rich have both come up with these lists completely independently, and there's so much overlap between the two of them, like lack of objectivity, the missing information within the scope of the work you're doing, the work scope itself not being clear enough. And part of that clarification is about also having decision makers, or being part of this system, this communication system somehow, right? There are too many meetings often, but there's often also sometimes meetings that if you are in, you can help unblock these things, right? So it's also interlinked, these challenges of objectivity and communication and scope. And So how do you approach solving these things from your perspective, Lucas?
So, as I was saying before, the thing that is the most important, I would say, is people, right? And I would put people over process. And as a matter of fact, if you go into the Agile Manifesto, this is one of the first things that you're going to see there. And I take that very seriously. Process should work for the people and not the other way around. We know that, especially in enterprise, that it might not be true because processes are in place and we need to respect them. There's usually a lot more that goes into putting a process together, like privacy, security. There's a lot more elements that might make the process a little bit rigid, but as much as you can, if you can put people in front of process, you will get things done. So the first item there, start with what you do now. This is exactly what I mean. I've seen situations where we're kicking off a project, and then you go into a room full of new people, or like maybe people you haven't worked before, and then you're like, okay, this is how we do things, X, Y, Z, and then at the end, people are like, not people are resistant to adhering to that methodology because they didn't have any say into it, or they didn't have any participation into actually building that together, right? So one of the things that I do whenever I join a new team or whenever I start working with a new team is start with what you have. Start with the tools that are already in place. Is start with the job titles, the current roles and responsibilities, and build up from there, right? And see what tools you need to put in place or what processes you need to put in place in order to achieve the goals that you want to do, not the other way around. And then the second bullet point is agree to pursue evolutionary change. So this is definitely something when it comes to a process, one single person is not going to get much done. So you should have buy-in from everyone involved and agree to pursue evolutionary change. Know for a fact that at the beginning, you're not going to have all the answers, or you're not going to have like a well-rounded process. It might take time. It might take months. So just know that and then build up from that point. And then the third one ties in very nicely with the other ones, which is encourage leadership at all levels, right? So most people, they just want to go in, do their job and go home, which is completely fine. But at the same time, if you can encourage those people to actually think with a more entrepreneurial mindset, you might achieve some greater things because instead of just picking up, let's say, a ticket and doing exactly what is written there, which sometimes might not be well defined, if that person has leadership, a leadership mindset, they will come back to you and ask questions. They will try to solve the problem alongside yourself rather than just like doing what they're told, going back, and then it's wrong, and then you have to go back and redo it. So like it just ensures that people are being empowered enough to actually speak up. Right. And there's a lot of things that go into doing that. Psychological safety is one, keeping an eye on mental health and overall team happiness is another one. But yeah, we had cases here of people volunteering to join other teams to help out whenever we had capacity constraints. And this is beautiful. This is exactly what we strive to have as a team, is people raising their hands and suggesting something new or suggesting that they do something else, putting their egos aside and working together towards a common goal. And then in terms of process, this is also something. So I was thinking really hard about how to actually talk about process because we all come from different industries, different types of settings, and yeah, pretty much process works very differently everywhere. But this is definitely something that can help you out whenever and pretty much in life as well, I would say. So first thing, visualize work, right? Any tool. That's why we also asked that question. We saw that people use different tools, even Excel, like any tool whatsoever, just pick one so that you can see all of the work in one place, right? And then once you have that, you need to have a way of managing the flow. And by flow, I mean moving tickets from when they are created all the way until they're done, right? And you might have several hoops to go through. Some companies might have more, some companies might have less, but you need to understand the flow and then ensure that the tickets are going through, removing the blockers, ensuring that the tickets are well written, ensure that you have all of the information in order to proceed with something, right? And also ensure that you're not just making everything an urgent thing, right? If everything is urgent, nothing is urgent. So also keep an eye on that, because that will definitely help you ensure that things are moving across the way. And there's some anecdotes about people moving tickets or asking for tickets and saying, oh, this needs to be done by tomorrow. And then you scramble to get that done by tomorrow, and then that is just sat there waiting because the person is not even looking at the things that they requested, right? And this just pretty much is a hit to morale as well. And then if that happens and you ask something urgent, you get that done urgently, but you don't provide feedback to that person, whether that is done, completed, or whether that is something that still needs work. That person is probably not going to be wanting to work with you long term, or like not going to prioritize their things, because they know that regardless of how quick they do something, that is not going to get seen or act on quickly. And then last but not least, implement feedback loops. This can come in the form of retros, postmortems. I don't like that word very much, but yeah, that kind of process. But one piece of advice that I would say is don't wait until the end to do a reflection on how things went. Do that more frequently throughout a project or a program of work, and then you will probably get way more useful insights, way fresher as well, and something that you can act on and correct course, and not wait until the end. So like you can correct course of a project that is going south very quickly if you have those points of feedback. So yeah, and then lastly, the key takeaways from this presentation, if there's one slide that I would love for you to just, yeah, pretty much reflect on, is empathy goes a long way, right? More often than not, being nicer is a better payout than not being nice. So try to be as nice as you can. Respect everyone. That is goes without saying, but yeah, respect everyone that you're working with. Know that on the other side, there's a human being with a life, with a family, with their, motivations. So try to get to know the people that you're working with, because more often than not, you are gonna get way more success out of doing that and way more things done, right? We had examples of people like saying, "Well, I have to take my kid to a swimming lesson." By all means, go and take the kid to the swimming lesson. Go spend time with your family. Come back refreshed and ready to do work. This is what I mean when I say ensure that people are happy. Ensure that people are not burning out. Burning out is the worst thing that can happen to anyone and to any company, because you're losing a lot of productivity. You're losing pretty much someone's mental health in the process as well. And we just want to avoid that altogether. Second one, foster accountability. That goes with the encouraging acts of leadership. Whenever you have like the nice environment for people to thrive and for people to actually be whoever they want to be, and yeah, be themselves and pretty much suggest new things, you are going to invariably get accountability. You are going to get people really taking matters to their own and going lengths in order to fix whatever issue is at hand. And then lastly, improve collaboratively, evolve experimentally. There's no right or wrong answers with much of what we're doing, right? It's all about try and error. So if people want to suggest something new, let them do it. Obviously there should be some guardrails so that, we're not spending a lot of money on something that is not going anywhere. But at the same time, let people do it. And as you let people do it more, the experiments, they will have a much higher success rate than before. And then it goes and feeds into improving collaboratively altogether. So yeah, this is my message, and I hope it makes sense.
Thanks, Lucas. It's sometimes hard to be incredibly specific with these things just because everybody's processes are so different and that all organizations are so different. But focusing on the people really can help solve so many things. Like if you are struggling to get things done, just pick an engineer on the team of people that are supposed to be implementing your team. If you don't have a relationship with them, just ask them what are their meetings like? Why, like, what do they expect in a ticket? What are some of the things that are preventing some of your tickets from not being implemented? Build that relationship and help pull out some kind of tangible parts of it. This is something that we've been thinking about and had a lot of feedback from our customers about over the past few years. And one of the areas that we've identified people struggle with is often writing tickets. And so a feature that we've released to try and address this is leveraging AI, leveraging LLMs to help save a lot of that time and format data in a way that is actionable from a development point of view. So we've got this AI generated ticket feature that you create a task from an issue in the Lumar app, and you can just generate on the spot within a few seconds. This is what a delivery ticket in an ideal world should look like. And it's not always going to be perfect because AI never is, but it might be 70% of the way there. And you can then, all that time you've saved, spend that on building out maybe the business case or the impact, or making it a really clear priority so that not everything you're pushing into that backlog is that urgent thing. And you can really clearly in your head say, actually, this one is slightly less urgent because the impact is maybe less than this one. And you might sometimes have to hold something back so that when something truly is urgent, you have that goodwill with the team to get it implemented. So a final quick poll, and we won't share the answers of this one, but if you would like to have a demo of our AI generated ticket functionality, then please let us know in the poll and we'll reach out to you after this. But we have a few minutes left to talk Q&A. So I actually can't see the questions, so someone's going to have to show them to me. Okay, I've got one here. So if dev tickets I submit are getting ignored and never end up getting actioned, is there a good or efficient way to chase the dev team on the status of these tickets? So automated reminders, calendar invites, alerts. Lucas, is this maybe one for you? How do you chase things that aren't getting actioned?
Yeah. So what I would do in that scenario is essentially try to understand the root of the problem, right? It might be because you're adding your tickets too late into the development cycle, and the development cycle has already started, so your ticket is not going to get picked up for that cycle. So also try to understand how long that cycle is. In some companies, it might be 1 week, might be 2 weeks, it might be a month, more. We never know. So this is definitely something to keep an eye on. And also going back to what we were saying before, try to build a relationship to understand where the root cause is, because it might be that you are trying to reach out to a completely different team or a team that does not work with that. So there's lots and lots of reasons, but hopefully there should be a point of contact in whichever team you're trying to work with, that you can sort out those types of situations.
There's also stand-ups. Daily stand-ups are a thing that developers have, and they talk through what they did yesterday, what they do today, and what are their blockers. And if you'll find that due to like missing information or the scope not being clear, like sometimes they just can't pick something up very easily, so they put it off. then they pick up the next easiest ticket. So if you can join those either refinement meetings or those standard meetings and help clarify, you can unblock it and get it moving along. So yeah, on top of what Lucas said, just try and find out when those meetings are and jump in there and be like, hello, I created this ticket. Can I help you move this along? We've got a question here on a Jira integration. Is that coming soon? That's definitely something we're exploring. We're planning to pull in, we're calling them rich links. So the ability to copy and paste links into your task manager, which will format from any of the different systems. As you saw, everybody is using a different system. Majority using Jira, but we plan to pull those links in through so that it'll pull through the status and the name of the ticket and the ticket number. So that should be available in the coming months, and we are exploring which specific integrations, Jira being an obvious one to look into. Do we work on that next? How can we quantify the value or impact of fixing a given issue?
That's a great question.
Since my dev team wants numbers to prioritize tasks.
Yeah, that's a classic one for me, I think, that one. So essentially the way that we work is we know something is an issue, right? So if I take a really basic one, we know 404s are an issue, we should fix them. But what does that actually do for the site? Well, that's kind of the gap that we're talking about when we say in the ticket, what is missing? Because if we, if you go to a dev and you sort of say 404s are a problem, please fix them, they know that. They don't really know where that's going to sit versus fixing pretty much anything else, to be honest. I mean, the example I gave earlier was if a button is broken. Well, what if that button is the add to cart button? It's always going to take priority. But what if that button is show more? Something that maybe is less important. Why would we do 404s over fixing the show more button? And that's kind of the point of why does it matter? And that's what you've got to dig at. So in this example, this is generally how I approach it. I look for what actual impact it is having, which seems really basic, but what I'm talking about here is in the 404 instance, and the example that I'm giving here, I would go into Search Console, I would go and see how many pages Google's finding 404s on, see how much time it's wasting crawling 404s. Then my justification might be, well, it's wasting crawl budget. There could be a secondary justification of users are ending up on these 404 pages, so it's bad for UX. How many users? Well, I need to go and find that from analytics. These are the numbers that are going to make the difference for devs when you put them in front and say 1,000 users clicked on this page. So potentially we could reduce the number of users wasted time. Well, we could reduce 1,000 users wasted time on this, and we can also reduce wasted resources by doing this. So those are the numbers that you need to put down. It gets a bit trickier when it comes to individual like content keywords and things like that. It's like, oh, I want to change the content on this page because I think this keyword's more important. Historically, I've used something like AdWords or some PPC estimation tools to sort of say, well, if we get to top 10 for this word, then we'll get this much value, basically. That's a little bit harder to do, but that's kind of the core idea. You sort of say, well, if the current page ranks here for this term. So if we manage to transfer this term onto this page, this new term onto this page, that could result in this many visits, which would equate to maybe this much value. It's all going to be estimates. You're going to be estimating from other pages and similar terms, but that's where your numbers are going to come from. And those are the ones that help you prioritize where you're going to get. And keep in mind, it's in your head, know that this is all an estimate. You're not going to know exactly until the stuff is deployed, but you should follow up. You should see and sort of say, well, this is what I thought, and this is what actually happened, because that will lead into better data in the future.
And also build up confidence in the tickets that you create in the future, right? So potentially start small and say, this is my estimate of this thing. And when that does work, you build up a bit of goodwill and weight in the prioritization room that you can get the next thing done. So yeah, connect things to, there's always some kind of performance indicator you can connect it to, even if it's like 1 or 2 steps away. You can try and pull that through into the business case. We have unfortunately reached the end of the time we have. So thank you everybody for joining, and any questions that we didn't get around to, we'll make sure to reach out. If you would like to move on to the next thing and learn some more about first off, the AI-powered dev ticket feature, we've got a blog post about that. We've also released a new Lumar podcast, which is hosted by our Chris Span, who's on our professional services team. And the first episode is with Will Critchlow, who's the founder and CEO of SearchPilot, and also was the founder of Distilled Agency. So that's a really interesting conversation from his experiences. And the next webinar we'll be having is around our latest Lumar releases, our feature update. So as Lumar mentioned, we've got a bunch of releases we release every 2 weeks. So the customer success team will be running through what the latest updates are. And thank you everyone for joining. See you next time.
Yeah, thank you very much.